Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, good evening.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hello,
Good evening, sir.
good evening. Yes, can you? Hello, Shrita, how are you?
Hi, sir. Good, sir. How are you, sir?
Fine, fine, fine. Nice to see you.
Same here, sir. Same here.
Because sometimes this time is not suitable for everybody, but then still, if you take out time, something or other thing, you'll be able
No, sir. I
to.
think Saturday, 5 o'clock, most of them are free, I guess. So
Mhm.
it's in good timing, in fact.
Yes, yes. Hello, can we start? Uh, 10 participants are there.
Hello.
We can start. If you have question, we can start from there.
Hello.
Yes,
Sir, wishing you
yes.
very happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
Your
Thank
birthday.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I thought we will wish personally because today is sir's class.
Happy birthday, sir. Happy birthday, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Happy birthday, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So आज मेरी बीवी भी चिल्ला रही थी कि आज
Happy
तो नहीं रखना.
birthday, sir.
थैंक यू. She was shouting at me कि आज तो नहीं रखना था, शाम को जाना है, पार्टी है, ये है, वो है. मैं बोला वो अनाउंस हो गया, अभी तीर कमान से निकल गया, अभी वापस नहीं हो
Uh,
Yeah, good evening, sir.
but this was your special day, and still you have taken out time for us. Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you. Because we have already committed. Your all time is also precious. Suppose many of you have, reschedule your things, may take out time. So once we announce the time, then it is we should try hard to make it.
Yes,
Anyway,
sir. Yes, sir.
so without wasting time, let us
Yes,
start
sir.
discussion. Yeah.
Sir,
From
I
where
have
we
a-
can. Yes, please.
Sir, I have a query that whether the use of high dose of gonadotropins, does it decrease the quality of egg or the embryo?
Very, very important questions. Uh, as far as euploid status is concerned, it does not change the euploid status. So nobody can say that if you use high gonadotropin, then you are increasing the aneuploidy embryos. First thing. Second
Mm-hmm.
thing, the high usage of gonadotropin affects the results by multiple way. One, the quality of the oocytes. Sometimes the oocytes which are resistant to stimulate, they start growing because of the higher dose. Not necessarily they are anybody, but they are resistant oocyte with some problem, with higher FSH threshold, with so this oocytes comes up. So overall, with the higher uses of doses, you decreases the cycle cancellation rate, but rest of the things remains same. But on the contrary, beyond certain limit, because ultimately the single most criteria, if you ask me, for the success of IVF is follicle output rate, which is directly linked to cumulative pregnancy rate per stimulation. So for practically for us is the most important is a cumulative pregnancy rate per stimulation. That's the most important thing for private practitioner. So that definitely increase to a certain extent. But beyond that, if you increase the dose of gonadotropin, you may get more oocyte, but those oocytes does not give pregnancy. Number one, the ones you increase the dose beyond certain limit, there are certain inherent problem associated with. One is premature LS surge. So you will say uh, premature LS surge. Second is severe rise of progesterone in the later half of the cycle. So you will say, okay, we do not want to transfer FAIR. So what is the problem? If progesterone is raised in the late follicular phase, what is the problem? Problem is there. That also is not good till certain extent. If you are freezing the embryo, the outcome is not changed. But once there are studies and conclusions that even if the progesterone rise is too much, like more than 2.25, especially in poor responder, uh, then even if you freeze those embryos, which embryos are formed out of those oocytes, even in the frozen embryo transfer cycle, uh, hello, yeah, even in the frozen embryo transfer cycle, am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
In frozen embryo transfer cycle, that embryos does not give result. Those are not good embryos. So there are chances of premature LSF. There are chances of severe progesterone elevation. There are chances of premature ovulation. So a lot of things are associated with the very high dose of gonadotropin. So beyond certain limit, no, it is not good, because in this ISAR also the overall voice of everybody was give full throttle uh, stimulation for all the patients. I agree. Once you are freezing the embryos, you should give full throttle stimulation for most of the people. Now, in my practice, suppose if you ask me which are the patients where I do not give full throttle stimulation, I do not give full throttle stimulation only in Poseidon group 4, where really patient is aged, AC and AMH is very, very low. You are not going to get out of nothing, anything out of it. Even if you stimulate with the milder dose or with the oral, combining with the oral drug, if you stimulate with the very high dose, does not make any difference. So this is the only group of patients where I will not unnecessary waste gonadotropin. Otherwise, in all other group, I give full throttle stimulation because I believe in freeze all. But then there has to be limit. You cannot just give more than 375 gonadotropin. And if it is RFSH, not more than 300 or maximum 375, not beyond that. And if HMG, maybe little higher 450, nothing, not more than that. It's not going to give any better pregnancy rate. Can you, rest of the people can mute so that a lot of disturbance is coming. Yes, Sagar.
Hello,
Yes, Sagar.
very happy birthday, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sagar.
Sir, I have a few questions. Once I was listening to our past talk, in which Dr. Mahesh Jariwala sir has mentioned, in case of severe PCOS, he used to give ciprotren acetate for continuous 90 days without any
Hmm,
break, and
hmm,
the
hmm.
AMH is going to half. So, do you have any experience, and what are the other means to
And
stimulate no in case of
AMH,
non-IUI cycle?
AMH after long sabrotinone acetate, the AMH used to go half. You mean to say?
Yes, yes. In which
Okay.
sir has mentioned.
Hmm,
I
hmm,
have
hmm.
not tried any in any patients.
And now, okay, okay. So, what is your question? You are asking my opinion.
Yeah, and in case of non-IVF cycle, what are the other means to stimulate the severe PCOS ovaries?
Okay. See, Dr. Jariwala is very talented person, and he has got his own ways of doing.
Yes, yes,
Sometimes the concepts are not easily explainable by him, or it's not explainable to us. That does not
yes,
mean he whatever he does is irrational. First of all, let me
mm,
clarify.
yes,
He's a
yes,
brilliant person. Now,
no
as
doubt,
far as
no doubt.
my understanding is concerned, uh, by cypraterone acetate, you cannot change the intrafollicular androgen environment.
Okay,
The AMH which is coming down is because of the UC pills. Even if you give UC pills for 90 days, the AMH
mm,
has to come down, first of all.
okay,
So the better and healthy way to bring AMH low, come down, is metformin. The
mm,
metformin has got the same effect. So if you, that is the reason in severe PCOS, the healthier way is to pre-treat with the metformin for
mm,
60 to 80 days. And
mm,
that will, and practically we do it. And that will calm down the, in simple word, जो तूफानी PCOS है, उसको
mm,
कम
mm,
वो कम डाउन कर देते हैं. They come down the severe PCOS.
yes, yes,
So it's not because ultimately you must understand why there is a severity of the PCOS, why the PCOS are resistant, and why the basic reason behind the resistant PCOS is one, hyperandrogenemia,
mm,
two, raised basal LH
basal
level,
LH,
and high insulin resistance.
mm,
These are the three reasons why the PCOS becomes resistant to
resistant,
stimulation or severe PCOS, you can say. Now,
yes,
what can be done? What is the basic treatment of hyperandrogenemia? Is give OC pills.
OCPs,
Hmm? Correct the
yes,
metabolic disorder.
mm,
Barabar? What is the treatment of bringing down the raised basal LH level? OC pills
mm,
or suppress the pituitary. So
yes,
OC pills pre-treatment in PCOS along with metformin will solve all the purpose. So if you give OC pills along with the metformin for 60 days, I'm sure the this will become severe PCOS will be downgraded to a little milder PCOS. Now, better than rather than this, okay. Now coming to a second question, in non-IVF cycle, what is a way forward to stimulate a severe PCOS? So basically, you are talking about how to stimulate the resistant PCOS, because severe
yes,
PCOS are CC resistant PCOS or PCOS which are resistant to be stimulated by oral drugs. So how do you identify? Yeah, it is associated with the hyperandrogenemia. It is the AMH is in the tune of more than 8. AMH is more than 8. And there's a lot of very small follicles. So these are the severe PCOS, and if you stimulate with the oral drug, including letrozole, there is no recruitment of the follicle. This is what we understand.
Yes.
Now, if you want to stimulate this uh, type of the PCOS, you have to sit with the patient, counsel the patient. You have to understand the economical aspect of the stimulation. Now, if the patient, suppose if you ask me, and the patient is absolutely uh, affording and does not have any problem, and patient does not want to pass any time and want to start stimulation immediately, chronic low dose step up protocol will be the ideal protocol, which can give you a fantastic result. But it is with the cost, because a lot of gonadotropins are consumed. And in that case, you start with 37.5, continue for 7 days, again see, and then if there is no recruitment of the follicle, again you add 37.5, make it 75. And most of the time within 28 days and before the gonadotropin dose reaches 112, you will start a nice recruitment of one or maximum two follicle, and that follicles are going to be good and they're going to give a good, very good pregnancy. So that is most ideal in case of affording patients. Now, if that is not a case, and if patient says cost conscious, as well as patient are cost conscious, then pre-treat with the OC pills and metformin and stimulate with the oral drug. And once the oral drugs are over, you add gonadotropin. But then this is going to be a little multifollicular development. But still in India, it is okay. If the 2-3 follicles are developed, it is fine. So gonadotropin in the dose of 150, 3 days, and on fourth day, you see the recruitment of the follicle has occurred or not. And if the recruitment of the follicle has occurred, you continue for 1 day. And don't forget to stop gonadotropin once the follicle has reached 15 millimeters. Beyond that, the follicle keep growing by itself. And by anyway, you are going to give trigger when the follicle reaches somewhere around 18 millimeters. Of course, you will see the vascularity and other parameter also. So this is how normally we do. Now, another way is the extended letrozole protocol or your step up letrozole protocol. A lot of people, including our co-admin Sachin, he has got very good experience of extended letrozole protocol. But overall, I am not that bullish for that protocol, unlike him. And across in even ISAR, I was discussing with many. So many of them are also not believing in extended letrozole protocol for the simple reason the hyperandrogenism of the follicle, when once the follicle crosses 8 millimeter, then there are chances of formation of the cyst, because the follicle which are recruited, they do not like a hyperandrogenic environment. So that is the only my understanding which prevents me to use this protocol left and right.
That's it.
Yeah. Anybody wants to add anything, please.
I've
This is a
used, sir,
discussion. No? This is not a teaching. This is mutual understanding and mutual learning. So please feel free to give your own input.
In chronic letrozole protocol, I've used for a couple of patients. Maybe it has given me good result, but maybe I'll have some more patients in case of severe PCOS.
So one thing is certain, a couple of people are getting a good result. So there is no harm in trying once. I mean,
Trying,
there is no
yes,
harm in trying. Yes, there is no harm in trying.
So in extended letrozole, does the endometrium not come up so well if
Yes.
we give for 10 days?
Yes, I agree. The endometrium is not that good.
Sir, what I do, I'll continue letrozole till 11-12 millimeter, and then I'll shift it to the gonadotropin. So the rest of the endometrial recovery happens by the time we give the gonadotropin.
So even whenever there is with the letrozole, whenever there is a poor poor endometrial, don't hesitate to combine it with the sildenafil. Sildenafil always you can combine. In fact, there are studies which they have tried letrozole plus estradiol combination. So they say even if you after giving letrozole, if you give if you're finding that the endometrium is lagging behind and the follicle has already recruited, you can add the external estradiol valrate. Of course the study was with the ethinyl estradiol, but instead of that we can always add ethinyl valrate, estradiol valrate, sorry, and we can try. It is going to increase the endometrial thickness.
Okay, sir. Hyperandrogenism, you said about the follicles. What does that do when we give letrozole continuously?
See, in the mid follicular phase, I would say when the follicle has reached 10 millimeter, 8 to 10 millimeter,
Yes.
at that time there should be a shift from hyperandrogenic and to estrogenic predominant environment in the follicle. That does not happen smoothly when you're giving extended letrozole protocol as per the endocrinology. I'm not talking practically, as per the endocrinology.
Sir, I have three
So
questions.
they say that there is a cyst, more chances of cyst formation. The follicle which you are thinking, that follicle is growing, but that is not a follicle, that is a cyst.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I have three questions, sir.
Yes.
Sir, first one is, sir, day 5 blast transfer, sir. Many a times we have seen the blast is not developed on day 5, but it develops on day 6 or day 7. So should we transfer taking it as a day 5, that is giving progesterone for 6 days and then transfer day 5, or we have to count on what day it has developed? For example, the blast has developed on day 6. We have to give 7 days of progesterone and then transfer, sir. This is the first question, sir. Second one is, how do you calculate the number of hours of embryo transfer, sir? Like you will be messaging, no, sir, like FET done 80 hours of progesterone. How it is calculated, sir? And
Okay.
third question is, in the message, sir, when you started with the recombinant FSH, along with the recombinant HCG of 150 units, how did you calculate that recombinant HCG 150 units, sir?
Okay. So all three questions are really very good. Now, first of all, when you are transferring the embryos fresh,
Yes, sir.
and the blastocyst is not formed on day 5,
Yes, sir.
you have to just forget the transferring blastocyst in this cycle. So in fresh
Okay.
transfer, blastocyst cannot be. Please, rest of the people, please mute yourself. Lot of noise is coming. Can you mute? Other people can mute. Who has asked the question? Can you raise the hand?
Sir, myself, sir, Dr. Sushma.
Okay, fine. So when the blastocyst is not formed on 5th day, you cannot transfer blastocyst fresh beyond that. So what does that mean? That means that even if the blastocyst is formed on 6th day, and if you transfer after 6th day of progesterone, that is not going to give a good pregnancy.
Okay.
So that means the embryo and endometrium synchrony is according to the stage. According to the stage. So so this is one thing. Second thing, it has been proved that in frozen blastocyst transfer, whether you transfer after 5 days or 6 days of progesterone, the results are same. Whether you transfer the blastocyst which was freezed after 5 days and day 5 blastocyst and day 6 blastocyst, frozen embryo transfer results are same.
Okay, sir.
So this is another conclusion which is to be taken into mind. That means that means you have to be in a middle way. I could find out only one study which says that if late formation of blastocyst has occurred, you should give little extra days of progesterone. That is the only study. But practically, what happens if the blastocyst has formed little late? Uh, then also, I do not give progesterone more than my 120 hours or maximum 140 hours. Not beyond that. Not beyond that.
Okay.
That is one thing. And second thing, suppose the blastocyst which is formed after 120 hours, then after thawing, I may wait for a couple of hours before transfer, maybe 4 hours, 5 or 6 hours, and so that just before H, if embryologist has got time, then she will keep watch on that, and then we will transfer. But if the embryos which were frozen late, then we do not wait, and after thawing within 2 hours we transfer. So if late formation of the blastocyst has occurred, we do not give that much longer progesterone because we understand that the embryo endometrial synchrony is according to the stage, not
Stage.
exactly according to the hours, because embryos and endometrium, they are two different entities.
Yes, sir.
And the embryo does not give signal, okay, okay, endometrium, you please stop and grow little slow because I am not able to develop. No, that type of signal is not there. So one thing is
Yes.
very certain: 120 hours of progesterone is sufficient for blastocyst transfer.
Yes, sir.
So this was the question, and then what was the last question you left is?
Sir, second question
Yes.
is how do you calculate the number of hours of ET, sir? Like when you tell 80 hours, 120 hours, then
Okay,
from when
it's
you
it's very it's very simple. The embryonic age starts from the time of fertilization.
Yes, sir.
When you are doing ICSI or when you are doing IVF, that's the time from where we start calculating embryonic age. And endometrial age starts from the ovulation, from the pickup. Sorry, from the pickup.
Okay, sir.
Endometrial age starts from the pickup if it is a fresh cycle. And if it is a HRT cycle, the first exposure of progesterone.
Okay, sir.
From
Okay.
that point of time, the endometrial age starts. Now, this is also not a very perfect way. Why I'm telling you? See, endometrial age uh, actually starts earlier than what we understand. Because even if it is a fresh cycle, when we give trigger, the progesterone rises significantly. Uh, uh, 12 to 24 hours after the trigger. Progesterone, I'm talking about progesterone.
Yes,
So,
sir.
progesterone is already nearly doubles up. Say, suppose basal progesterone was approximately 1.5. So,
Uh,
if you measure the progesterone 12 hours after your trigger, it is in the tune of 3 to 6 nanogram. So it nearly doubles up, nearly doubles up. But we don't count that progesterone exposure. We count from the ovulation. We count from ovulation. Okay. So that
yes,
is the
sir.
reason. That is the reason. If my standard calculation does not work and the implantation does not happen, in next cycle, we always try to give a extra progesterone considering. Uh, I'm telling you practically, I always, when I start progesterone, my embryologist, who is my daughter, normally she set the luteal support. I only decide what medicine I want to give in the luteal support. So she messages the patient and she decides, as she tells and she conveys the patient how luteal support is to be taken. So I write clearly that progesterone to be started 0 hours is 9 a.m. in the morning plus or not or same or plus 12 hours. Means she has liberty to start progesterone up to 12 hours. Suppose if I have written 0 hours to be counted from 9 a.m. morning, she can start progesterone 12 hours earlier and still counting endometrial age counting she starts from the morning. So that extra leverage of 12 hours progesterone sometimes takes care of better implantation. Anyhow, one should not worry too much about the exact time of starting progesterone because if you notice if the progesterone exposure is much more deviated more than 2 days. Window of implantation is deviated more than 2 days. Then and then it substantially reduces the implantation rate. So you should not worry about 12, 24 hours. 24 hours here and there. See, more is better. So always try to give progesterone more 12 to 24 hours than your counting. But never give a less progesterone. I'm sure you are following what you are following on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If you are not, anybody is not following, please tell me. I can repeat.
So when you said that if we tell the patient start at 9 a.m., so you said she can start earlier.
No. I convey my daughter embryologist. Okay,
Yes, sir.
0 hours to be counted from 9 a.m. morning. But she has liberty to start progesterone 12 hours earlier.
Yes, sir.
12
Got
hours earlier. Okay, sir, you please take some water. We can wait.
Sorry?
You can take some water, sir.
That is. पानी दे दो। Nearby Ganpati Pandal is there. So, are you able to hear
Okay.
me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine.
तो ठीक है सर, दर्शन करा दीजिएगा बाद में।
बताइए now, tell me.
Sir, I was asking.
Sorry?
I was asking, sir, when you said 9 a.m., so she has a liberty to start before who? The embryologist? The patient will not
No.
know anything, na?
No, the patient will be conveyed. Na?
No, sir. What my query is that supposing it has to be
normally-
started at 9 a.m.
Suppose, for example, okay, we have decided to transfer the embryo at 80 hours. Okay.
Yes.
So if morning 9 a.m. is a 0 hours today, for example, आज
Yes.
third का morning है 9 a.m.
Yes.
Okay. So we are going to transfer on 4th, 5th, 6th evening because 6th morning को 72 hours होंगे.
Yes.
So
Sir.
we will transfer in the 6th evening, right? 6th
Okay.
evening को 80 hours हो जाएंगे. Now,
Okay.
in first transfer we go by the standard formula. So she will start progesterone exactly at 9 a.m. only. Suppose this
Okay.
transfer fails, then next time we will start progesterone 12 hours or 24 hours earlier. So
Okay.
even though we were transferring, we want to transfer 6th evening, we will start progesterone yesternight to midnight, second
Okay.
midnight or maybe late evening. Now you got it.
Yeah, yes, sir. Got it. Thank you.
But
Now,
number
last question. How do you
Yes.
prepare a recombinant SCG 150 unit or 125 unit? Now, one novel experiment I am doing. Just now I have mixed in the morning biosimilar RFSH and I have added couple of minutes of urinary SCG into it, and I'm going to use in some of the patient so that the patient is 36, 37. I'm sure tomorrow I'm going to stimulate. 36, 37 years old lady. So definitely I wanted LH activity. At the same time, I did not want to use HMG. I wanted to use RFSH only. So to add the LH activity, I have already premixed added urinary SE. Now let us see what happens. That I will update you later on what happens. So I have
Okay,
taken
sir.
permission from biosimilar RFSH company to provide me for RFSH injection for experiment. Initially, they were reluctant, but then I argued with them, so they are convinced now. So I'm going to do that. Now, SCG, how do you prepare? It's a simple thing. If you just read the composition of whatever SCG you are using, QS is written. If QS is normal saline, means it is that vehicle is normal saline, then you can dilute with the normal saline. And if the QS is water for injection, you can dilute with the water for injection. Anyway, even if QS is water for injection, if you go to the composition of the SCG, sodium chloride is always there. So uniformly, you can dilute with the normal saline. Any SCG preparation can be diluted with the normal saline. Now we know our UCOG 1 cc, that injection, precisely it is not 1 cc, probably less than it is 0.98 cc or 0.96 cc or something like that. So that is equivalent to 250 microgram of RSCG, or you can convert into 6,500 unit of SCG activity. So you take an insulin syringe and fill half insulin syringe, and rest you can add a normal saline. That is one way. If you do not want to waste, most of the time, how I do, I take the injection, SCG injection, and take a 10 ml syringe and fully dilute with the normal saline. So that 10 ml of that reconstituted solution is equivalent to 6,500 unit of RSCG. Now it's a simple calculation. If I take 1 ml, then it is 650 unit. So 1 ml insulin syringe is 100 unit insulin syringe. They are available in the market. So 1 unit is equivalent to 6.5 unit of SCG. Accordingly, I do. And this reconstituted solution can be used easily for 5 days without any problem. 5 to 7 days. Even a whole stimulation we have used.
Sir,
Okay, sir.
1 cc will be 650 units, sir. But
Yes.
how come 150 units, sir? Because 1 cc is 650 units, 650 units.
Agreed. Now you take 100 unit per ml insulin syringe.
Sir.
Okay. So 1 unit of insulin syringe is equivalent to 6.5 unit of SCG.
Okay, then we need to calculate how much ever we want, then multiply and then give it. Okay, sir. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Got it. Yes, sir. Thank you,
Hello,
sir.
sir.
Thanks a lot, sir, and happy birthday, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, you have mentioned in the message for the soft protocol that CC as well as 150 HMG you are giving throughout before trigger, and you are giving only.
Sorry. I'm not, you're not audible. You're not audible, doctor. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Please repeat the question. I have not heard completely.
Yes, sir. In the soft protocol, you have mentioned in the message that you have given clomiphene 100 milligram before trigger throughout the cycle, and HMG 150 international unit till trigger, and you are giving only agonist trigger, not dual trigger. So I want to know why you are giving agonist, and after 2 days you are saying that I am giving SCG 2000 or the 5000 IU for the luteal phase support. So I
Okay.
want to know why not dual trigger, only agonist trigger you are giving in the CC cycle.
No, there is no reason. In any circumstances, a dual trigger is always a better option. better trigger. Any substance, may it be a hyper respond except hyper responder, where it increases the chances of OHSS. Rest in all other cases, may it be near normal responder, may it be poor responder. My preference is always a dual trigger. In IVF, I'm talking about IVF. Now you are mixing up. In IVF, definitely we give a dual trigger, and CCHMG is my favorite protocol that gives really good result. And we don't have to give more than that. We don't have to use antagonist. That's another beauty of it. But this is good when you have already determined not to transfer the embryos fresh. But if you have decided to transfer the embryos fresh in poor responder, please try to avoid clomiphene. Although the studies are there, there in clomiphene gonadotropin cycle, the endometrial thickness does not matter. But still, to be on safer side, uh, do not use clomiphene if you want to transfer the embryo fresh. In that case, better to use letrozole and SMG combination or RFS combination in a milder dose. But then in that case, you have to use antagonist. But antagonist can be started little later. So now coming back to trigger. So in IVF, except hyper responder, everywhere else a dual trigger. Now what do you mean by a dual trigger? The in ideal concept, the original study, the dose of SCG in dual trigger was 30 units per kg of the body weight. So not exceeding 2000 units, maybe 1500 to 2000. And in some of the unit, they tried even 1200 unit also. So I am little skeptical about this dose. Why? Because in dose finding study of SCG as a trigger, they found that if you use a lesser than 3000 unit of SCG as a trigger, the meiotic resumption of the oocyte and retrieval rate is approximately 60%. But if you use 5000, this retrieval rate is approximately 80,000. And if you use 10,000, the retrieval is little more, 5 to 7% more. So one thing is certain, that if you are using just SCG as a addition of LH activity and very small dose, so that there is no luteolysis and you can transfer the embryos fresh. For that purpose, if you are giving, then 1500 or 2000 unit of SCG along with the agonist is just sufficient. But my aim is not only that. My aim is by chance, for some reason, agonist has not worked because that patient has thin patient, lean patient, prolonged OC pills has been taken. The basal LH, which I have not measured, was low. The LH level on the day of trigger was low, which I have not measured, which I have probably missed. So I do not want to take any chance. For that purpose, I would prefer to use 5000 unit of SCG along with the standard dose of agonist, so that by chance agonist is not working, at least SCG will be working. That's the whole idea of using SCG 5000 unit in a dual trigger. Now, coming back to using agonist trigger in non-IVF cycle. In non-IVF cycle, agonist trigger very well, it can be used very well. And I would say that it is a more physiological way of triggering if you use agonist trigger. The only problem with the agonist trigger, it increases a little bit the expenditure, because this cycle, although as per the study not suggested, as per the study say that even after agonist trigger, if you use standard luteal support of progesterone in non-IVF cycle, does not matter. The results are same. But we all know, we all understand the physiology, reproductive endocrinology, that if you use agonist trigger, the LH surge is quite short. And there are chances that this surge may not be sufficient. And there are chances, and there are very high chances that this corpus luteum will not support for the sufficient time. So we need to support with SCG. So the better way is give ideal trigger, agonist trigger, and before completion of 72 hours from your trigger, agonist trigger, supplement that patient with a small dose of SCG, maybe 2000, maybe 5000. And things done. You don't have to provide any luteal support, nothing, because that SCG will be a oxygen therapy for that corpus luteum, and that will again stimulate the corpus luteum and bring a new enthusiasm of synthesis of the progesterone, and this progesterone is going to take care of luteal support for next at least 6 to 7 days, and by the time the implantation period will be over.
Thank you, sir.
So, what you had written for us for that case, that you said that what I have given is a dual trigger. There's another mode, na, sir, double trigger that you give at the same time, 5000 SCG and 0.2 units of this
See,
decapeptyl.
no, dual trigger, double trigger, both are different things. Dual trigger is concomitant, simultaneously you give. And double trigger, when you think that previously there was a empty follicle syndrome, or the follicle output rate was less, or M2 rate was less. So in that case, they say that these follicles require little extra exposure of LH activity. And to provide the extra LH activity, they say that first trigger should be given agonist trigger, and 6 hours after that, you should give 6 hours after that, give SCG trigger. So, and retrieve after 40 hours from the first trigger.
Okay. But sir, what you are talking about is the dual trigger, which we are giving simultaneously, na?
Yes,
So
yes.
So in the patient where your pregnancy test was positive and you had given us, so you said please discuss it in the meeting, that we were asking that you had given not simultaneously, you had given the agonist first, and after 72 hours you gave the SCG.
Okay, yes.
That
I
case,
remember.
sir.
Yes. Okay. Now, in non-IVF cycle, IVF cycle, so we normally freeze the embryos, so I'm not worried much. But in non-IVF cycle, what happens if you use SCG trigger routinely? Suppose if you use dual trigger, then the early luteal rise of progesterone will be too much. I always dislike this early rise of progesterone following SCG trigger. That's the most non-physiological rise of progesterone, because that is not a time where the endometrium wants such a high level of progesterone. The endometrium like a slow rise and picking the progesterone fourth day after the ovulation, fourth or fifth day after ovulation, and then remain stable for a couple of days. That's the ideal rise of progesterone, which is in normal cycle, which happens in normal cycle. So ultimately, if I use a dual trigger in non-IVF cycle, either time intercourse or IUI cycle, I cannot avoid this early rise of progesterone. So still I want to make it more physiological, I would give agonist trigger, so that it's a very substantial rise of progesterone, early rise of progesterone won't be there. It will be there, but not to the extent of SCG. And by 48 hours or 72 hours of the agonist trigger, I will supplement with a small dose of SCG. So which will further again rise the progesterone, which is actually falling following agonist trigger, because after agonist trigger, the progesterone start falling after 48 hours and start falling significantly after 72 hours. You must understand this. So
Yes.
if you have to supplement with anything, it should be before 48 hours of completion from the agonist trigger. So
Okay.
I do not want that. So I want to mimic the natural cycle. That's the only reason why I want to do that.
Okay.
Now,
So
is that clear?
that was an IVF cycle, because you gave us the whole sheet also, and it was written so many embryos transferred on which day. So that was an IVF cycle, and you said the
So
result
that
was positive.
okay. So that was I wanted to transfer fresh.
Okay.
See,
So, sir, in
normally
CC
when
you
I
have given, sir.
when I want to transfer fresh embryos, I
Okay.
always wish I supplement SCG in the little later, not very immediately.
So
And sir,
matlab that yes, the
Yes.
sir,
dual trigger will not be so good.
yeah.
You
No,
mean to
it's
say?
not a great. No. Instead of a dual trigger, when you want to transfer fresh, the luteal rescue is always better. Give agonist
Okay.
trigger and within 48 hours, after 48 hours, give SCG. Rather than giving SCG simultaneously, give little later. The only problem, you are likely to get empty follicle if the agonist trigger is not acted. That's the disadvantage. Otherwise, no disadvantage. It's more
Okay.
physiological.
And so the advantage of this type of trigger over dual trigger is where you
First,
give after
the
48 hours.
first, it's a more physiological, because
When you
the
okay.
early rise of progesterone is not that following agonist trigger.
Okay. So if, when we give it after 48 hours, the early rise of progesterone will not be there.
Yeah, it will be to a lesser amplitude.
Okay. So in fresh, this one is better. Okay, sir.
Yeah, and
And
second
and
reason
sir,
is
what? Yes.
second reason is, suppose you have given agonist trigger, and uh, by chance if the patient has started developing OHS symptoms of OHSS, like the ovaries
Okay.
enlarged and free fluid in the pouch of Douglas, and the patient has symptomatic nauseated feeling and this and that, then you can always feel happy. Okay, dual trigger was not given and only agonist trigger was given. So you will not, you will withhold the SCG. And
Okay.
suppose, third advantage, suppose you thought this patient is borderline and this may end up in OHSS. So let us try. Endometrium is good. So I am in dilemma whether I want to transfer fresh or I should freeze. So I will give a try. I will give agonist trigger. I will wait. I will watch at the time of OM pickup. I will see that what is the status, how much amount of free fluid is there, is there any symptoms are there with the patient or not. If the patient is not symptomatic and there is no significant free fluid, the ovaries are not that enlarged, I will rescue this cycle by adding SCG after 48 hours of my agonist trigger. So
So
that
that will be
now I
at the yes.
now I am sure. Then now I will be able to transfer fresh without increasing the chances of OHSS. That's a third advantage.
At the
And
time
sir,
of OPU, we'll give this SCG.
At the time of OPU or a little later after that.
It will.
Hmm.
sir,
So
in
how
the
much? How
same
much
case you
SCG?
have, sir,
2000.
mentioned,
When is it is used as a rescue, it is 2000.
Okay. Thank you.
sir, in the same case you have mentioned that you are giving clomiphene till trigger and
Hmm.
HMG 150 till trigger. So endometrium is good, and you are doing fresh transfer.
Yes. So it is. I said it is. This fresh transfer was not planned from the beginning, because my 98% of the cycles are frozen cycles. So in poor responder or where I want to give a mild stimulation protocol, I always prefer to use the CCHMG or CCRFSH combination, uninterrupted 100 milligram of clomiphene and RFSH 150 unit or HMG 115, whatever. So my preference is most of the time RFSH because I know in clomiphene cycle the LH deficiency is never there. In clomiphene cycle, there is no LH deficiency because once you give clomiphene, the pituitary will pump out FSH as well as LH. So I'm not worried about LH activity. So I always give RFSH along with the clomiphene. But in this cycle, it was given HMG for maybe financial aspect, nothing more than that. So once the clomiphene is combined with the gonadotropin, normally endometrium is not a problem because little higher supraphysiological, little higher level of estradiol, which takes care of endometrial development. Even though receptors are blocked, even the receptors are blocked, because you will say receptors are blocked, then how the estradiol takes care? Somehow it takes care. And even if in this cycle, if the endometrium is thin, does not uh, impact the outcome, provided it should be more than 6 millimeter at least, not 8 millimeter or 9 millimeter. If it is 6 millimeter or 6 plus, you should be happy and you can go ahead with transfer in clomiphene gonadotropin cycle.
Okay.
So in fresh transfer, we can give this clomiphene throughout till trigger, sir.
Absolutely, why not? If it is combined with the gonadotropin, without any problem. The results are in front of you. Many times it happens.
After the positive result you showed.
Yeah.
So,
Sir, there is no need to add antagonist or antagonist in the cycle, sir. When you add clomiphene and HMG.
Now I'm using this CC HMG protocol quite a good number of times. I have faced premature ovulation or rupture of the follicle before the time of my ovum pickup, maybe 5% time. 5% time. I must accept it. Huh? 5% time I have faced the premature ovulation. The follicles are gone. So what I do, I continue clomiphene till trigger. Because earlier I was not having immunoassay rapid test in my lab. Now I have. So I take help of sometime the hormonal analysis also, which earlier I was not taking help of hormonal analysis. Now I have started taking help of hormonal analysis. So, but without hormonal analysis, if I have to do, then how I do? Normally, we start antagonist when the lead follicle is reaching 13 millimeter, right? But when I am using clomiphene, I am not really worried to start antagonist as per the schedule time. So at leisure, I start antagonist maybe around 16 millimeter, I would say 15 millimeter, 16 millimeter. So that is just to protect or doubly protect from the LS surge. And then if that is the case, maybe 1 or 2 doses of antagonist I have to give. That takes care of premature LS surge and ovulation without increasing cost of cycle significantly. And we do, in that case, we don't have to give any NSAIDs. Normally, without antagonist cover, whenever CCHMG cycle we use, most of the time I give tablet Brufen 200 milligram TDS in last 2 days, which I normally do not give if I have used antagonist.
With
What is the
sir,
purpose of this NSAIDs, sir?
Sorry.
What is the purpose of adding this NSAIDs?
Oh, now if you look at the cascade of ovulation, whatever is happening in the follicle, right from meiotic resumption to developing gaps and junction to separation of cumulus from the oocyte. The last incidence which is going to happen is weakening of the serosal surface of the ovary follicle, and that forms the stigma. The part becomes weak, and this here in last part of the ovulation, the prostaglandin plays a very important role. Without prostaglandin, ovulation does not happen. So if I add NSAIDs, it inhibits the prostaglandin E, and because of that, mechanical ovulation does not happen. By chance, suppose all the hormonal parameters change and LS surge is initiated and meiotic resumption also can happen, but ovulation will not happen. So it gives a little false security, I would say, not a true security. You will not find a ruptured follicle, but you are likely to find if the ovulation, the LS surge has already occurred prematurely, then you are not going to get a good quality oocyte, post-mature oocyte. But at least you will get oocyte. You will not lose oocyte in the peritoneal cavity, because that's the last uh, uh, thing which happens in the process of ovulation, the action of prostaglandin.
In one of my patients, she she underwent. She's an PCOD patient. Her LH is 8 before womb retrieval. Now I am trying to do FET. In first cycle, when our maximum endometrium thickness is 6.5 before IVF cycle. So I started her on estradiol to FET cycle. That time, first time I went for hormone replace HRT cycle. Estrogen I have given for 12th day. Her endometrium changed and checked for my progesterone level. It is above 1.5. So I cancel the cycle and then again go for a natural cycle. This time also, when the endometrium is 6 to 6.5, the ovulation is not there, but the progesterone endometrium pattern changed.
Uh,
Then point
you,
3.
you mean to say the ovaries are silent
Yes.
till the progesterone level rises, right?
Yes, sir.
That is what you want to say. So, what are the sources of progesterone? One is ovary and second is adrenal. These are the only two sources of progesterone.
Okay.
Now, in ovaries, the progesterone, to form a progesterone, raw material is a cholesterol. From cholesterol, the pregnenolone is formed, and from pregnenolone, under the LH activity, either delta 4 or delta 5 pathway, the progesterone is formed. So, for this, to form the progesterone, the follicular recruitment is not always needed. Not always needed. Even if when the LH activity is high, the progesterone can remain little on the higher side, because of this pathway can remain active, because the theca cell will and theca cell have LH receptor. It's a granulosa cells in the smaller follicle, they do not have any LH receptor, but the theca cell has got LH receptor. So theoretically speaking, if the basal LH level is high, there are chances of progesterone remains elevated. Same time, you have to check with the adrenal origin progesterone also. So if this is happening repeatedly, I would advise to one, downregulate completely, shut off the pituitary first, and two, add glucocorticoid, dexamethasone or visolon, prednisolone in this cycle. At least that should be stopped before transfer for 3 to 4 days, because I do not want any immunosuppressant or anti-inflammatory drugs around the time of embryo transfer. Because if the pro-inflammatory process is suppressed, then chances of adhering embryo and invasion of the embryo, where the pro-inflammatory events are predominant, that will hamper the implantation if patient is on steroid. And that is the reason whenever for some reason the patient is taking steroid, I always stop 2 to 3 days before my embryo transfer, and again restart after
Yeah, come on.
3 to 4 days, 3 to 4 days of
Huh?
transfer. So coming
No,
back,
it's gonna go on
so
for a
what
while.
can be done? Please mute yourself. Lot of disturbances there. Please mute yourself.
I say it's gonna
So
go
coming
on
back,
for another hour. So come, let me take you. It's okay.
please mute yourself. Those who are not participating. So in this case, two things I would advise. One is complete down regulation, and second, add steroid.
By giving down regulation, will you give whole 3.75 milligram of leuprolide or half dose something? Sir, in one of my patient, when I give full dose, for 3 months the endometrium doesn't develop. From that time onwards, I am little hesitant
No,
to
no,
use this.
no. Please, don't misunderstand. That could be a sporadic incidence. The GnRH analog down regulation has nothing to do with the endometrial proliferation. In fact, it is mentioned in many of the studies where for endometrial proliferation nothing works. You can downregulate the cycle agonist down regulation. Following that, if you do HRT cycle, the endometrial proliferation is better. So your bad experience is bad luck. For some reason, it must have happened, but it is not a case. You can always get a good endometrium following agonist down regulation.
Okay. In one of my colleagues says she used to give half dose. Is it good? Is that
Another,
correct?
another. If you give agonist, it reduces the effect of antagonist on endometrium. So agonist is always friendly to the endometrium, because agonist is direct. Agonist receptors are there, and second, because of the agonist, otherwise not I'm not talking about down regulation. A single dose of agonist releases the LH from the pituitary, and there are LHCG receptor in the endometrium, which has got a specific role in implantation and placental differentiation, villus differentiation. So gonadotropin, agonists are good. You should not worry, and you should not blame agonists for thinner endometrium. Now, what your colleague said,
She used to give half dose of leuprolide. That
see, you why now I tell you, even I use 1/2 dose of luprolide, but if that it is a stimulation cycle, because in stimulation cycle, my purpose is to just shut off the pituitary, and I do not want over suppression, and because I do not want to have a larger consumption of gonadotropin. So that is fine. That's a dose which is required. But here in HRT cycle, my purpose of down regulation is not only pituitary shut off. My another purpose is I want anti-inflammatory effect. Suppose there is subtle endometriosis or adenomyosis, then agonist downregulation X reduces the cytokines. So I want this effect also. So I should give a full downregulation. In fact, I would advise not a single regulation, but downregulation for at least 3 months, if that is a case of adenomyosis or endometriosis.
okay. On day 2 or day 21, sir, previous cycle.
See, if I am downregulating for more than 1 month, then I always give on day 2. And then after 28 days, again repeat, again 20 days, after 28 days, irrespective of the menstruation, repeat. And after that, whatever I want to do, I start.
In one of my patient, where I have done a submucosal myoma resection, she developed an endometrial adhesion. I done a hysteroscopy. There was an thick band of adhesion. I released that adhesion and put a PRP because of thin endometrium. I put her on PRP at the same time of adhesiolysis. And I started her on estrogen for preventing adhesion. I need to do an FET cycle after 3 months or next month, sir. Wait for 3 months, or because I'm worried about PRP action. Will it be acting for 3 months, or I need to go for next cycle itself?
The effect of PRP is visible, best visible in next month. Best visible in next month. So that action, what you can do under the effect of PRP because of the infusion of the growth factor. Suppose basal endometrium stem cells become activated, and with the estrogen, with the help of estrogen, suppose the endometrium has been proliferated, then it will act as an upregulation of the endometrial receptor, and even you are likely to get same kind of endometrium even the next cycle. So you should not worry hard and fast. But if you ask me, the best action, best effect of PRP is visible same cycle and next cycle.
After adhesiolysis, will I go
Another
for
thing, another
same
thing,
cycle?
whenever you use any energy or you operate, and if you release some adhesions or remove some polyp or damage or touch endometrium surgically with the some energy sources or without energy sources, the endometrium is recovered in couple of weeks, not within 2 weeks.
Okay.
So as far as the recovery of the endometrium is concerned, it is 2 weeks. Unless you have done some symbicous myomectomy or some gross surgery, then the things may be different. May take 8 to 10 weeks, 12 weeks. But from the minor procedure, it is not going to take more. The insult will recover in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Small polyps are again in 2 weeks, sir?
2 weeks. Polyp, if you have not done any extensive job, you just remove the polyp. In next cycle, definitely you can transfer. For sure, 100% you can transfer.
Okay, sir. Okay. So you had written one tablet. One was AV Beyond. What are those tablets after the transfer?
It's a big complex. Not after transfer. It is once the beta HCG positive. We normally give B complex. No?
It's a B complex.
First trimester. It's a B complex.
And ish plate, sir?
Ish folate is a folic acid.
Ish plate is folic acid. Okay.
Ish folate is a folic acid.
Because you had written a folic, there was a folic acid preparation with that also, with ish plate also, sir. Okay, I thought something different. So, okay,
no,
fine.
It's a folic acid.
Okay, sir.
So today, one another patient, what we did a little different is case of again recurrent implantation failure.
Okay.
So I thought, apart from doing other things, let me try the SCG in HRT cycle. So because this SCG or LH activity molecule is, I'm very much curious to apply at different places. So in this patient, even if it was a HRT cycle, I give SCG short 5000 36 hours before starting progesterone. The moment I decided, okay, endometrium is formed, and now I want to start progesterone and transfer the embryos, I gave SCG short 5000, and I told my daughter, okay, start progesterone exactly 36 hours. That's why we counted 0, 36 hours after your SCG. So this patient, SCG was today is a 12th day from the SCG, and 7 days after the transfer, 7 or 8 days after the transfer, or 12th, 13th day of the SCG. The patient is very much googly and fond of doing research on the Google. So she did urinary SCG test by herself, and she found SCG positive, UPT positive. So I
Okay.
said, don't be so happy. This can be for 7 to 8 days after the SCG. The SCG remains detectable in urine. So by herself, she did beta SCG test. So beta SCG test was also not very good. It was in the range of 1920 something. So still 1920 beta SCG after 11 days or 12 days of SCG trigger is
Nothing.
suggestive of ongoing pregnancy.
Yes, sir.
So I have told her to repeat after 48 hours. And if this turns out to be positive, that is another good thing that in HRT cycle, you can, in failure, you can try with the SCG before starting progesterone. I will update once I get the result.
Okay, sir. So you do the beta HCG before, I mean, like usually standard is after 14 days, you do before 14 days, not after transfer.
If my transfer is most of the time 80 hours transfer. So I call
Pardon, sir?
13 after 80 hours transfer. My transfers are always 80 hours embryo.
Yes, sir.
So
Okay.
if it is blastocyst transfer, I can call the patient 11 days after my transfer for beta CG. But if it is not a blastocyst transfer, ideally 12, 13, at least 12 or 13 days. 13 days after the transfer, I call the patient for beta CG.
Okay, okay. Nothing is there. 1 week is not there. Someone was telling me after 1 week, so I was confused.
Yes, you can see. Please try to understand. Once the implantation occurs, that is likely to occur maybe
4 days
7 to 8 days,
after.
7 to 8 days after your starting of the progesterone.
Okay.
Okay.
Huh.
So
Okay.
by 9th or 10th day of your starting progesterone, the hyperglycosylated SCG, which is secreted from the cytotrophoblast, is going to take care of the maintenance of the corpus luteum. And beta SCG, but very initial 1 or 2 days, that hyperglycosylated SCG rise is not going to be reflected in your beta SCG test. So still, if you wait 1 or 2 days more, that is 12th day from your starting progesterone, means 7 days or 5 or 6 days from your transfer. If you have transfer blastocyst, 5 or 6 days of your blastocyst, if you do beta SCG test is positive if she is pregnant. But then why to remain in so much anxiety?
Yes.
So rather than that, better to do a beta CG at that time where you can sure tell whether she is pregnant or not.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Maybe whoever was doing it after 1 week was saying that they take more care of the pregnancy. How will that be done, sir?
What do you mean by more care of pregnancy? Nothing works. I never advise rest to the patient. So only care to be taken while after transfer is she should not eat outside food. She should not fell ill because whatever unnecessary extra medicine for maybe cold, cough, diarrhea, whatever is going to affect the early embryos. So I always tell, okay, remain safe in the environment, but there is no need to take this.
Okay. And someone was telling about HCG. They give HCG once the. Is it correct, sir? Once you know that she is pregnant, then to give HCG for
In
continuing the
my whole
pregnancy.
life, I never used SCG in pregnant woman. Never.
Okay, okay. There are some people who are giving HCG after the embryo transfer routinely every 4th day.
If that is a fresh transfer, it is still acceptable till beta CG
Okay,
test is positive.
okay, not after HCG.
Suppose agonist trigger has been used and you have transferred fresh embryo. So there is some sense in using SCG in the luteal support. But
Okay,
otherwise, there is no sense. If SCG trigger was used, there is no sense in using SCG.
Okay. Okay. Because they say the SCG acts on the endometrium. Even in FET, it is beneficial. There are receptors, SCG receptors
So
in the
that
endometrium.
before implantation, that it plays a role before implantation. In
Okay.
fact, sometime when SCG is not needed, if you give SCG at the initial process of the implantation, it
Yes.
competes with the hyperglycosylated SCG, and which is a very hyperglycosylated SCG is early SCG, which is secreted from the cytotacula, and which is very crucial in placental differentiation and chorionic differentiation. So if you give urinary SCG externally, you are likely to create a competition, and that
Okay.
and which can theoretically harm.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sir, one query regarding CCHMG cycle. When you start antagonist in CCHMG cycle, on that time, do you stop CC or still you continue after starting antagonist?
I continue this
Okay, till trigger.
till trigger.
And sir, what is the dose of brufen? It's 200 milligram or 400
200
milligram?
milligram TDS. It is 200
200.
milligram TDS.
Okay, sir. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, sir. Okay.
Right.
The 200 milligram TDS.
Yes.
Okay. Thank
Sir,
you.
sir, I have one query. Sir,
Yes.
sir, in
Yes.
antagonist
Yes.
cycle, sir, in antagonist cycle, if you want to postpone the trigger for a day, so is it a good practice to give antagonist in the morning and trigger in the trigger at night? And if the follicles are of adequate size and we do
No.
not
No.
just want to postpone,
You want to see what is the purpose of pulling one day more
so supposingly there's a weekend, we want to avoid a
weekend.
weekend.
Okay. So once you achieve the trigger criteria in antagonist cycle, plus minus one day is acceptable. If you extend beyond that, once your trigger criteria are achieved, and you for some reason you want to pull 2 days more, by pulling 2 days more, you are likely to retrieve more oocytes, but you are not likely to increase the mature oocyte. So it is not going to make any difference with increased cost of cycle. This you must understand. And second thing, it is better not to transfer if you have crossed beyond +2 from the ideal time of trigger. So don't transfer fresh. Otherwise, there is no problem in antagonist cycle. Now, if you want to pull at regular time, you can give antagonist. There is no need to give twice antagonist. Twice antagonist has some role in reduction of progesterone elevation on the day of trigger. It has got some role. So if you think that you want to transfer fresh embryos and you think that the progesterone should remain in control, then it's a good strategy to reduce the dose of gonadotropin last 2 days and give antagonist twice on last day of trigger, last day before trigger.
Sir, I also want to clarify that if we want to
Please
put the
speak loudly, little loudly, Dr. Bhavna. Oh no, Dr. Bhavna is speaking.
okay, so if
Who is
sir,
speaking?
I want to clarify one more thing. If you want to
Yeah.
if you want to pull the cycle one day more, and we are giving antagonist in the morning, then do we also need to give gonadotropin along with it, or giving the antagonist plain antagonist and trigger at night is okay?
So you mean to say last day along with the antagonist you need to give gonadotropin or not?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because our
Say,
follicles are already grown to the adequate size. So do we
right.
need to add gonadotropin or just give the antagonist?
I would advise never give uncovered antagonist because if without gonadotropin, if you give antagonist, it can drop it too suddenly. So I would advise, okay, if you on last day at least give a small dose of gonadotropin in the tune of 75 over 150. but not to completely avoid gonadotropin on the last day.
Okay. Right, sir.
Because
But
anyway,
sir,
it is not going to affect the OHSS rate and the follicle growth. Because even after stopping gonadotropin, the follicles keep growing for next 4 days. And estradiol most of the time keep increasing for next 2 days. That's the basic understanding of the endocrinology, reproductive endocrinology. Now here the situation is you are stopping the gonadotropin and you are giving antagonist. So you are completely shutting off the native gonadotropin. So which is a little risky situation, So better to give a small dose of gonadotropin on the last day.
okay, sir.
Sir, but like if we give the antagonist 12 hours after, so that is the last dose of gonadotropin we have given already. But now we want
To repeat the antagonist, then we
No, I am not following what you say.
pardon, sir.
I am not following what lot of noise from around. Please speak little loudly.
Okay, sir, I was saying that today, supposing the last day of gonadotropin, and we want that the progesterone level should not be very high, and we give a second dose of antagonist after 12 hours.
Yes, in the
So
evening.
then we don't need to give the gonadotropin again, no, sir?
No. Gonadotropin to be given daily once only.
Once in 24 hours.
Yes,
And the antagonist is to be repeated in 12 hours.
yes, it can be repeated as well.
Mainly,
Yes,
sir, you are saying that I usually give 2 doses of antag. So you are doing it routinely, or in which cycle you are giving 2 doses of antagonist? Hello, sir. Hello. Yes, sir.
Hello.
You are audible.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Ah. So antagonist can be repeated in the evening.
So in which patient you are giving 2 doses of antagonist, sir? In which cycle?
If the patient is not hyper responder and if I decide to transfer a fresh uh, where endometrium is growing and everything is looking absolutely fantastic. Well, triple line good endometrium, the follicle output rate is good, the mature follicle are between 10 to 14. And I'm thinking, okay, in this patient, I want to transfer fresh, which is not a very regular scenario.
Okay.
So, and my next worry or anxiety will be a progesterone level on the day of trigger. So, to reduce the progesterone level on the day of trigger is prevention of new recruitment of the follicle, because the contribution of smaller follicle, 9 millimeter plus follicle, is greatest and responsible for the progesterone elevation on the day of trigger. So if I can cut down the FSH level, at least those follicle will not grow because they will come below the threshold. So those follicles are not going to grow. They are not, no follicle not going to contribute a progesterone. So that's one way of reducing the progesterone. Second, uh, I want to reduce estradiol level also because I want to prevent OHSS. So by reducing the dose of gonadotropin, at least at the time of pickup, the estradiol level will be little low. Second, and third, I want to cut off whatever native gonadotropin also. So instead of one antagonist, I will give two antagonists. So in last day, I will use two antagonists. So by attacking from three sides, there are chances that progesterone level may remain in check. I have not tried so many times and correlated with the hormonal level, but I believe that this could be possible. This can be possible.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, if we are using double antagonist, when should we give the trigger, sir?
The rule is simple. After last antagonist, if you are giving SAG trigger can be given anytime. But if you want to use agonist trigger, at least 8 hours gap should be there.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, and if we want to use single dose of agonist in when we are preparing the endometrium, like what is the dose and when should we give it, sir?
1 milligram of leuprolide after 5 days of progesterone, starting progesterone.
After 5 days of progesterone. Yes, sir. Sir, then you told that like we can start DEXA like when we are suspecting the adrenal source of progesterone when preparing the endometrium, and we are stopping it before transfer for 3 to 4 days. Then when should it be restarted, sir? I couldn't follow like what you said that time, sir.
So now what happens when you are transferring the embryos? Initially, pro-inflammatory environment, TH1 dominant environment is important.
Okay, sir.
So the implantation happens after starting progesterone somewhere around 7 to 8 days.
Okay, sir.
So, and once that implantation happens, then maybe after 1 or 2 days, the role of TH2 cytokines, dominance TH2, comes into the picture.
Okay,
so,
sir.
Stop steroid 2 to 3 days before my transfer and start maybe after 5 days of my transfer, 4 days of transfer.
Okay, sir.
Sir, leuprolide 1 milligram after progesterone. What is that?
That is a suggested. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Leuprolide, it's a one way suggested as per the study that in luteal support even in HRT cycle. If you use leuprolide as a luteal support, sometimes the results are better. So they combine with the progesterone and single dose of leuprolide after 5 days of progesterone. After 5 days of progesterone.
Or 3 days after
So
ET?
Yeah, that depends on what stage you are doing ET. So that is why I always tell after 5 days of progesterone, because that's the time where the maximum progesterone is required. So the moment you give agonist trigger, there will be release of some LH from the pituitary, which LH itself may be useful because LH plays important role in implantation, and that is the time of implantation, somewhere around peri-implantation period. And because of the LH, some progesterone additional will be released from the ovaries, and that may help.
Okay, so after ET, sir, the implantation is maximum after 2 days, sir.
No, that depends. Suppose you transfer the embryos on blastocyst, then implantation is going to happen in next 2 to 3 days. If you transfer cleavage embryo, then it may take 5 days.
Okay, sir. Okay, blast will take around 3 days, sir.
2 to 3 days.
2 to 3 days. Okay, sir. Sure. And sir, we
Hello?
can also,
Hello, please. Yes.
Sir, in agonist down-regulated FET cycle, is there any role of single dose of means leupride or DECA? In agonist down-regulated cycle.
So far, only one study came which has suggested that if you in agonist down regulated cycle you cannot. But if agonist trigger is used, you can very well give. But if it is a long agonist is down regulated, there is no point in giving agonist.
So does it have any effect directly on endometrium in
Can't,
down-regulated cycle?
can't say mainly it is through LH, pituitary LH, and acting on the GnRH receptor direct on the endometrium. So that much in depth, nobody has studied so far. Maybe it's animal study may be there, but the human studies are not.
Okay, so means there is no use of giving in down-regulated cycle.
Yes, down-regulated cycle rather than that, better to use SCG.
Okay, sir.
Giving what, sir? We cannot hear. Giving what?
SCG.
HCG after down regulated cycle. Okay.
Yeah, you can give. In HRT cycle you can give SCG. There is no problem.
Okay, sir. So this dose of Dexa or Vicelone, they say it crosses the placental barrier. So do we look anything to be preferred, or we can give either dexamethasone or Vicelone when the
Dexamethasone can be stopped if it is not indicated. Dexamethasone can be stopped when the pregnancy test is positive. If it was started empirically.
okay, and Vicelone we can continue, sir.
Even Vicelone also. Dexamethasone, glucocorticoid can be stopped.
Okay, so the dose, sir, please can you tell dose how much to give?
There are different studies. The
Hello. Hello, sir. Sir, it's not audible. Yes, hello, sir.